Welcome to another edition of CHP Talks. We are here today with special guest Tim Schindel, and we're going to be talking today about influence, Christian influence in our political sphere. And so Rod, why don't you give Tim a proper introduction?
Well, Tim Schindel is the founder and national director for Leading Influence. I learned about them a few years ago and stopped into their office in Victoria, and this is my first opportunity to actually meet Tim himself. Leading Influence functions as a ministry of presence and has provided excellence in chaplaincy care to elected leaders across Canada since 2007. Their ministry footprint extends from Victoria to Quebec City, right across the country. At the end of 2020, Leading Influence had a team of 8 chaplains, 9 prayer network leaders, and over 100 daily prayer writers and translators. Tim's work goal for 2021 is to find chaplains for Manitoba and the Maritimes. And Leading Influence is a registered Canadian charity and neither seeks nor receives government funding. Well, we like that. And prior to launching Leading Influence, Tim served as a pastor, staff, and lead roles across Western Canada for 25 years. He is a former marathon and half marathon runner and has become a road cyclist. This year's goal is to virtually ride halfway across Canada in 2021 using a route that goes through every capital city. Wow, 4,500 kilometers. Thus far, he's just passed Kamloops and headed north to Edmonton, although today he's in Victoria. His other pastimes include watching baseball, football, and reading anything to do with leadership. Tim and Barb have been married for 32 years and live in Victoria. They have 3 adult children, a dog named Maverick, and a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. I think that word Maverick and motorcycle go together, don't they, Tim?
They're both black, so.
Yeah. Right, well, thank you for joining us today. It's really a privilege to be with you with us today.
So how did you settle on this course of your life, being involved in influencing and being a chaplain to our political sphere?
Well, it's a good question. Again, thanks for the opportunity to be here. So, I was pastoring in Kamloops. I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce, got involved in the executive and the chamber. And over time, at first it was, you're a pastor. That's kind of weird. We don't get a lot of pastors here. And it moved from that to, you're a pastor. Can I talk to you later? And I just saw God begin to open doors for me with community leaders. And because we were very active as a chamber regionally and provincially, at a regional and provincial government level as well. And so at some point along the way, it was like I just saw a door and an opportunity. And so left our church in 2005, launched this in 2006, moved to Victoria in 2007, and here we are.
Oh, very good.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember seeing news articles about your organization when you started, or little memes on social media, things. So I was very curious back even when you were still in Kamloops.
Well, we've become a lot more comfortable, right? But in the early days, I was just terrified, right, that the media would find us and pounce on us, and that would be the end of us, right? But God has been very good, and we are, as the Bible says, we are a ministry of presence. So we're not about the issues; we're just all about the people. We're not about the politics, just there to serve people. So we work really hard at having friends, on both sides of the room, and to build our ministry networks there. And, obviously, right, if you have leaders or members who are people of faith, there, that's certainly a place where we're going to gravitate to. But, we see an opportunity outside of people of faith just to be an influence in their life, and very, very quietly and diplomatically point them to Jesus, right? Just by fundamentally discipling them that way. And we've learned that we can do a lot of things just by listening to their hearts, listening to their challenges, offering to pray with them. And as you pray with them and they see an answer, well, that opens the door to other conversations. So that's really kind of how we do it. We're not, driving an agenda. We're not forcing anything down anybody's throat. If you're not interested, just keep walking, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. I've heard it said that many politicians are, like elected officials are lonely. They really feel that they have few people to talk to. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, it has been our experience. It's a funny thing, politics, right? Because you kind of need to win everybody to your side to get elected. But once that happens, you discover that all people want from you is your vote on this issue, right? Nobody's really there to do anything for you or to serve you, and that kind of goes across the board. When I first started this, a friend who's a member here in BC, now retired, said this to me. He said, you have to understand this is a Shark Tank. Everybody wants your job. If you've got a better position in caucus, then what they do, they want your job. And so people may be nice to you, but don't assume they're your friends. And that was a real eye-opening experience, to kind of walk into that on the one hand, there's team, and on the other hand, it's a very highly competitive, and sort of dog-eat-dog world.
Wow. And it's a tight-knit group as well, right? There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, very tight-knit, right? And you've got caucus loyalties, and you've got leader loyalties and party loyalties and all of that stuff. And one of the things that we've had to overcome was the idea that we were picking up information from one side and delivering it to the other, and it's like, really, like, you have way better, there are way better people and way better sources out there than us on that stuff, right? But again, it's perception. And so, we've been doing this now for 14 years. And, I don't think you'd find a member anywhere in the country who'd say, well, those guys broke my confidence. And, and it cost me personally or politically. I don't think you'd find anybody like that. Right.
Well,
so we've just worked very hard at building relationship, gaining confidence and trust. And as opportunities arise, speak into people's lives.
How has your
it's so important. And
How has your team grown? How have you developed your team, or how have people come to join your team?
Well, yeah, again, good question. So 2007, I started here. I was by myself. Nobody else in the country doing anything like this. And it was like that actually until about 2014, 2015, a friend in town. We were baseball dads. Our sons played together, pastoring in another church. Kind of felt like that was coming to an end. He joined our team part-time, crossed over to full-time in 2015. And I was able to start commuting to Toronto. So then there were two of us. I did Toronto for 4 years, met our chaplain there at a prayer gathering. And we just kind of clicked. And, over a series of conversations, actually it happened like this. I was talking to him about our prayer networks. I was looking for some help with prayer writing. And he sent me a note and said, well, I have to tell you, I'm a little jealous. I wish I'd thought of this first because I really love what you do. And I looked at that and I thought, I think this might be Jesus speaking. And so I replied back, said, listen, this is not a two-ring circus. If you're interested in joining our team, let's have that conversation. That was in January. And by mid-March, he and his wife had committed to join. And so that's Charlie, and he's in Toronto. And at the end of 2019, that's what it was. It was Jason in Victoria, Charlie in Toronto, and I was getting ready to go to Ottawa. And of course, then pandemic hit and things just kind of fell into place. We had someone join us in Alberta, relationship, through relationship. We got a new chaplain coming on with us in Saskatchewan who will be full-time. We have a couple in Quebec City who joined our team. I think they started in May. So it's just kind of been, a lot of years of tilling the soil and planting seed. And then just last year, things just kind of began to come together for us. So we doubled our team, and so it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of work ahead of us. We're onboarding, three chaplains this year. So that's a lot of just, that sort of front end work as they raise their own support, et cetera, et cetera. But, it's been fun to watch it happen. And especially, honestly, to see it happen in Quebec, because it's a hard place to find people. I'm not a Francophone, I'm not bilingual. And so it makes it, that much more difficult to find somebody, but God in his mercy had prepared somebody who's wired to do this. And so we're very thankful.
Wow.
Yeah, that
I'm
is.
going to recruit Peter for Winnipeg, but just so you know, I'm just.
Well, I'll say I actually spent some time in Quebec City learning French,
Yeah.
and so I was particularly happy to hear that you had found someone for that legislature as well. I've been I've been inside of that building, and it holds a special place in my heart as well.
You know what? In mine too. I think of all of our legislatures, Quebec is the most interesting because they pay tribute, right, to all of the different kind of cultures along the way that help them become a people. And when you think, right, that, you know, Quebec City is the oldest city on the continent, right? They've been here for 450 years, the Quebecois. It's fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the organization has grown significantly, but that's not even how I found out about it. I found out about it because you're also offering leadership courses. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, happy to talk about Lead Well. And so we've seen something along the way, right? And just from the chaplaincy side and by observation, right? You see good people who love Jesus, who want to get into politics because they're going to change the world, right? And then they get into politics and they get elected and they discover that they're owned by a leader and they're owned by a whip and they're directed by a caucus. And things become much more complicated, right? And the other thing that happens is sometimes they become very toxic, right? They're good people, right? But it's like they become politically very toxic. And it's like, you know, those people on the other side are always, you know, the enemy. And we spend a lot of our time trying to move away from actually those people on the other side are the people we all want to reach, right? These are people that we need to be a witness to. And so we created a course, you know, coming out of that, we found some people who could speak to this and help us with it. So we built a course called Lead Well. It's all delivered online by module. And the vision is we want to teach people what it means to lead from a kingdom perspective, because not every idea on the other side of the room is a terrible idea. It's only a terrible idea because it wasn't your idea, right? But not every idea is a terrible idea. And we feel like if we could train and develop leaders to lead from a kingdom perspective, the nation would be better because in the kingdom everybody wins, right? There are no winners or losers. Everyone benefits when we follow kingdom values and principles. And so that's kind of where we want to go with this and develop people who can learn to work collaboratively and find the wins and bring that together. And so we actually had it happened for us almost not by accident, but kind of by accident. In one province, a critic was that we've been working with and walking with, knew that she was retiring, she was stepping out. And so, you know, in that last year, like, you know, you're leaving, the party knows you're leaving. So people kind of stop caring, right, about what you do, and you stop caring about the ramifications that can come your way. And so she determined that what she was going to do was, rather than during budget estimates, rather than criticizing and taking shots at the minister, she was going to bring proactive solutions to where she saw gaps and really do politics the way she wanted to do it. And it was fun to watch them become friends. You know, they would both, you know, steal out and go to the bathroom and just have a hug together, you know, just kind of have their little private chat sort of a thing, because they had become friends and almost allies in their commitment to work together for the betterment of the province. And we did a prayer breakfast right at the end of her term. And I mean, the two of them were like a de facto welcoming committee going around, you know, greeting everybody. It was like, these things never happen, right? But it was like, okay, we're living out the bipartisan thing. We're living out the collaborative thing. It's like, let's do this across the country in as many places as we can with as many people as we can. So that's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's so encouraging and uplifting to hear how people, I guess, who keep the big picture in mind, the bigger picture than getting elected next time or getting, you know, that vote win, but keep in mind the soul that is in the person on the other side of the room can have a huge influence.
Well, because one of the things, Peter, is that is that once you're elected, right? Like, it's one thing to say, I'm a Christian, I go to church on Sunday, I love Jesus, like, that's easy, in some ways, that's the easy part. But to actually be able to live that out and have some kind of process for spiritual formation that prepares you before you get there,
right,
that's a whole different deal. Because, like, when you're in caucus, you don't really have time for spiritual formation like that. If you didn't have that in place before you got there, it's not going to happen, right? And so that, that for us, that's a really big part. And, like, long term, what, like, 20, 25, 30 years from now, what do I see? I believe we will see people across the political spectrum who will be graduates of our course working in every legislature and parliament in the country. And I'm really excited about that. I hope I live long enough to be able to see it, but no.
Do you have many people who are not coming from a Christian worldview, many MPs or MLAs or some? Can you give us an idea?
That we're working with?
That come to you for counsel or?
Oh, yeah. I think it's really quite interesting, just to see. It's not really them coming to us as us going to them, right? But I would say probably 40% of the people we work with have no Christian worldview, but they are desperate for emotional and spiritual support. One of our chaplains was praying with a member, and they were going through they had just come through a fairly serious health crisis, and they were chatting, and our chaplain said, "Would you mind if I prayed with you?" Person reached their hand across the desk. He prayed. When it was over, this person was wiping tears from their eyes and saying, "It's been a long time since anyone's done that for me." And so those are the things that, and to me, it's an exciting thing, right? That you're in this environment where you can help people experience Jesus, experience his presence and his love and his grace and compassion for them in a way that maybe they've never experienced that before. And that can put them on a journey to, a personal faith at some point along the way.
Wow.
Yeah. Some plant and some water the seeds, right? And you never know, but when you're reaching out in Christ's love, then opportunities just happen, don't they?
They do.
Yeah. I think all of our, sorry.
I wanted to ask if one of the stresses that people may share with you have to do with party discipline or, you sort of alluded to it earlier. People think they're going to go in and set the world on fire for Jesus or whatever, but and I just have to ask it in a very general way because I'm not wanting to get onto any specific personalities, and I'm sure you're not either. But do you find party discipline or the constraints of party cooperation a difficult thing for?
Yeah, those are challenges for members, right? And so, because, most political parties don't, fully embrace, a Christian worldview. So you have, issues of, conflict, and that kind of thing. And so that's been really interesting. And like, I've had members who shouldn't really do this, but have sent me, emails, sort of forwarded me email conversations with, party whips or, leaders or whoever asking for permission to vote in a particular way. And it's like, if you can't vote yes, don't be in the room, right? So we have some of that. We have a lot. We have the party thing. We have a lot of personal issues, a lot of marriage issues. Politics is a hard business on relationships, and particularly, in where you're away from home. It's probably less of an issue like in Toronto, where most members are just driving home every night. More of an issue in places like Ottawa, Victoria, where people are away for 3-4 days at a time, and that becomes problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been able to help people out on that practical level, or I know that for myself, one of the things that happened at a very opportune time was that I happened to hear Stockwell Day and his wife give some thought about their time in office. They had just retired not that long earlier, and they talked about how they had spoken to each other about seeking office again. And it was really important because I hadn't been married that long when I heard this, and it was like it was practical advice on that personal level, and it stuck with me in terms of how you communicate this in a marriage, and so that you don't lose sight of being married in your political endeavors.
Yeah, because now we have actually one of the modules we do in the Lead Well course is on marriage, and just to, wanting to address that. And we've got a number of people from both sides of the political spectrum speaking to that. But man, politics is just can become so all-consuming that you lose sight of everything else, right? And it's just all about the next win, the next vote, the next issue, the next election, and it just becomes everything. And like, to people who can turn it off, right? You can have a wonderful relationship, have a very meaningful job, and have a wonderful marriage. But if you can't turn it off, that can gets really rough, and it gets harder after politics. Because now you have your whole operating system has been one thing, and now that's gone, and you really don't even know how to re-engage, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So have you been able to connect with people sort of post-political life as well that way?
Yeah, well, because what we do is so relational, right? I want to hang on to my friends, right? And so we've tried to work really hard at staying in touch with people, post politics. And we can help them a little bit with transition because we've seen other people go through it and can kind of coach them a little bit. So there's that, but these people have a wealth of expertise and insight, right? And that's a really important part of this too, because sometimes, even with what we're doing, it's like, hey, what do you think about this? Right? I'm facing this. We have this issue. What do you think? Where do you sit? What do you advise as our best path forward? Right? And they've been there and done that, and so they often have good insight into how we can help people moving forward.
How has
very good.
How has COVID affected your work? I mean, obviously we're all affected by it, but it certainly must have made it much more difficult. You can't be in the room, or not as easily in the room with somebody.
Yeah, well, and again, right? Yeah, good observation. In the beginning, I think I wouldn't say we panicked, but we did take pause and inhale deeply a few times, right, to kind of figure out what we were going to do. But I'll give you an example. In Toronto, our chaplain there was doing a weekly prayer gathering with members who wanted to come. Right, whoever wants to come can come, and obviously that's not happening as the building is locked down. And so he just said, I'm going to try this. And he just transitioned to online, kept it at the same time. And our numbers increased, right? BC the same, right? Because now it's not like, well, I have to rush out to that meeting, right? Most people, right, going to the office means walking down the hall. So it's in a lot of ways made people more available. And it has given us greater opportunity, right? And in different parts of the country, right? Rod, you and I are in BC, right? I mean, yeah, we're dealing with COVID, but it's a very different environment than what Peter's living in Toronto or in Ontario right now. So we've got different latitudes. We had a member, or one of our chaplains this week, was invited out for breakfast with a member and his staff, right? Just come and, let's have breakfast. You can meet my staff. And I was like, wow, okay. So there've been good things that have come out of this that would have never happened otherwise. And we've just really tried to work where we're finding traction, where we're finding favor, and move that forward. We've done some. So we haven't really talked about this yet, but the other part, we did the chaplaincy piece, but we have these daily prayer networks, a different prayer network in every province, Pray BC, Pray AB, Pray SK, right through to Quebec. So we have those, plus we have Pray Canada. So when the weight of COVID was really hitting April and May, and everybody's kind of like, what are we going to do? We put all of our prayer networks on hold, went to single issues, and just prayed about different aspects of what people were dealing with. forwarded that off to all of our people, like to our members that we work with, and we got great feedback on that. And hey, can you pray about this? So it's wonderful when members are saying, here's things that you can pray about. And particularly when you have well-placed members, in governments and stuff, who are saying, here are some things we're facing that really aren't in the news yet, but if you can pray about that, that would be amazing. And so that was, we were very honored to be able to do that, but it was kind of fun too, to know that we were praying about things that had yet to hit the news, right?
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, that's a great place to maybe pause and say, are there any last things that we want to cover before we wrap up? Tim, do you have, I know I want to say to people, this idea of praying for everyone in authority over us and praying for the issues of our day, we can't highlight that enough, but maybe we should also be praying for people to be rising up, to Christians especially, to be taking on some of these positions in our municipalities, in our provinces, and in our country.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good point. I think we so often think about, the only place we can really have political influence is in Ottawa or in a capital city, right? It's sort of in a legislature, but so much of politics is just serving people, right? At, municipal levels and regional levels and school boards. And there are so many opportunities where we can come in and legitimately serve. I understand that politics is about, advancing an agenda, right? And changing policy or affecting policy. And I get that. But if I'm going to put my cards on the table, I'd say I'm not convinced that what I see happening in social media, what my Christian brothers and sisters are, sharing and pushing on social media about politics is a great example of the way that Jesus would do things. I think that there are ways that we can shape our message and present our values that don't necessarily have to be adversarial. Right? Paul writes in Corinthians and says, look, I show you, let me show you a more excellent way at the end of chapter 12, and then goes into that great chapter on love. But it's like, if love frames who we are and what we do, and I'm not soft, but it's like, if love frames who we are and what we do, then let's embrace the more excellent way as we pursue having political influence in our communities and neighborhoods and nation.
Mm-hmm. And as you said so many times, it's about the relationship in that.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like, how do you argue with kindness, right? If and so much of what we do is just being kind to members. Hey, that was a great speech. My funniest kind of weirdest days are when, after question period, I see someone, a member of the opposition, who asks, that was a great question. Yeah, great job on that question. And 15 minutes later, I'm talking to the minister who answered the question. Well, that was a great answer. And it feels a little bit like there's this dissonance, right? But my job is to be encouraging and affirming and positive, right? So that I have a platform on which to begin to speak into their lives on other things, right? As God opens doors and that kind of thing. And I don't think that the strategy of kindness is limited to me alone, right? I think we all can do that.
Very good point.
We've had the privilege in the CHP of, developing some really good friendships with people. We haven't been tested in the fires of, being members of Parliament yet. We expect that at some point in the future, but we have, even on the campaign trail, developed some good friendships with those running for other parties, and maybe with slightly different perspectives. But we do share as human beings same kind of needs and desires for ourselves and our children, and so relationships can be built on those things.
Yeah, exactly. Let me share this with you, maybe just before we go. So Corky Evans was, in my mind, a political legend in BC, right? And never really took himself too seriously, right? He would joke. I got to Victoria just at the end of his tenure, And, he said, Mr. Speaker, I started on the government side in the far corner and I worked to cabinet. And he was pretty much on the back row. He was on his way out the door. He kind of done the full circle and he made a lot, had a lot of fun with that. But I'll never forget the speech that he made. He was such a great speaker. And Corky said this. He said, Mr. Speaker, we come here from different parts of the province. And he said, we all share one thing in common. And this speaks to your point, Ron. We all share one thing in common. And we want to leave BC better than the way we found it. This may have been his last speech. And he said, the difference between people who sit on this side of the room and people who sit on that side of the room is that we have different roadmaps on how to get there. But in the midst of our roadmaps, let's treat each other with kindness and respect and, that kind of thing. I just thought, you know what? That's a great lesson for all of us, right? I mean, we as believers, we one day look to a king, right? We look to the coming of a king one day. We serve a king, and yet in the meantime, we live in an imperfect world with imperfect political systems where we have the opportunity to try and make a difference. And so wherever, in our minds, wherever you sit on the political spectrum, right? Let your light shine there, let it shine brightly there, and make a difference around the values that you really care about, and point people to Jesus along the way. And I think it's a winning proposition for all of us.
So I want to thank you.
Thank you, Tim, for what you're doing. It's great to hear your enthusiasm.
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed this. Really, really great. Next time I'll wear a tie. I didn't quite get there, but
no, that's not a problem. But just to remind people, what's the best way to get a hold of you or your team?
For sure. So the best way to get a hold of us, our website is www.leadinginfluence.com. Or you can get me at tim@leadinginfluence.com, and would love to hear from you and engage in a conversation. If you have people who are interested in taking some training to prepare themselves for political office, please take a look at that. If you're on the website, just look at Lead Well and you can get all the information there. If you've got questions, again, fill out the form there or reach out to me and I can put you in touch with the right people.
Yeah, very good. Well,
okay, so again, Lead Well is the course that we've discussed.
Yeah, Lead Well is the course. Yeah,
we're speaking up at the same time. I don't know how I don't hear you and you don't hear me, but anyway, we do want to thank you very much, Tim, for joining us today. And
thank you.
We ask God to bless you in your work and prosper, and that you would have an underlying influence. That's your name, Leading Influence, an underlying influence in the lives and ministries and accomplishments of members of Parliament, members of the legislative assemblies, and of course, in the people of Canada. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Bless you guys. Take care.
Yes, and thank you all for listening today. And we hope that you'll join us for another edition of CHP Talks. God bless you.
Thank you.